Harihi Om. Sadashivasamarambham Śaṅkarācārya madhyamam Asmadācārya paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Mūkam karoti vācālam Pangum langayate girim Yadkrupatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Om Shishya Atma Samarpan. कार्पण्यदोषो उपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. We are in the 54th shloka of the second chapter in Bhagavad Gita. This is one of the most beautiful sections in the entire Bhagavad Gita, I would say. The question that Arjuna asks is by coining the terms that Bhagavan had used to define the properties of a jnani and a supreme karma yogi. He took the words of Bhagavan and he coined this word called as Sthitapragya, and he further qualifies it to say Samādhistha, because Samadhi was a term that Bhagavan had used. We saw the word by word meaning, and now we are going into the analysis of it. Continuing from where we left in the last week, Samādhistha, the state where the intellect is fully settled in the self, one who is established in samadhi. We can speak about different kinds of samadhi when we look at the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. But for now, let us focus on the term Sthitaprajña, which is what the word samadhi in this context represents. He also uses Sthitadhī in the second line, the first word. That which has come to rest, sthitham, and no longer slips. Dhihi represents the intellect of the person. We qualify it further to say it is the operating intellect, the decision, the responses, the speech, how they communicate. That aspect of it is qualified under the term Sthitadhī. Why is Arjuna qualifying the definition of the person using three expressions? He has used Sthitaprajña, he has used Samādhistha, and he has used Sthitadhī. By using this, Arjuna wants to convey that I understand you are describing a knower, but how does that inner certainty expresses itself outwardly? See, I may be a Sthitaprajña. From inwardly, there is no movement at all. Or outwardly, you may look at me and say, hey, this guy seems to be a Sthitaprajña. Whereas inside, I'm just totally in, tormenting inside me. I'm just jumping from one to another. I'm emotionally in a turmoil. The way that Arjuna is communicating is to ensure that this division is being addressed. If the wholesome is not established, response from Bhagavan could be limited. And that is one of the reasons why he is using all the three terms. Instead of saying just Sthitaprajña or just Samādhistha or even Sthitadhī, he uses all the three terms to ensure that the completeness of this persona is defined by Bhagavan. Knowledge that does not transform living is incomplete. For example, I have read Bhagavad Gita. I know what is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a text. It has 700 shlokas, etc. But that is just something that I know about an object. Just like I know what this mouse is, or I know what this laptop is. So I have only identified an object. As I said, that was the purpose when we first started Bhagavad Gita, like maybe 12, 13 years ago. And now we are at a point where we want to let the Bhagavad Gita transform us from within. We want Bhagavad Gita to go into us. And that is what is true knowledge. And Arjuna wants to understand that aspect of it. And hence he is using all the three terms to understand from the point of view of the, how the person receives a situation, or how one behaves in a specific situation. What is his bodily or speech wise, what is the response, kayikam and vachikam. The decision or other aspect of it is from the man point of view. There are three areas where we function. One, kayikam, which is physical, the body. The second is vachikam, the expression that we do in terms of verbal. And the manasam, which is from the mind. He wants to look at it from all the three, and hence he has used the three words. Living that claims transformation without knowledge is confusion. How I do is equally important as what makes me do that particular thing that I'm doing, and how they relate with one another. With Sthitadhī, Arjuna emphasizes the importance of that which has come to rest and no longer slips. Some also see it as, you told me about knowledge and about abidance. Now tell me about the functioning. They look into it from a functionality point of view. And there are some who say, how can I identify such a person through his outward expressions? Same thing in different words. The key insight for us is knowledge settles first. Identity follows that, and behavior settles last. Unless we become strong with our knowledge, the identity will still be very shaky. When the knowledge is well settled in us, when we understand the knowledge from all the points of views, having a thorough and a complete knowledge, not a belief, but a true knowledge, when once that settles into us, our identity will align itself to the knowledge. We have spoken about this earlier. First time somebody is coming home and I'm saying, hey, this guy is so good. If you are dealing with finance, be careful. Till the time you get to know the person later, this knowledge will drive your behavior towards him. Even if the other person is casually, making a joke, that also we will try to misunderstand and misrepresent, because there is a settled knowledge about this person. It may be wrong, but there is a settled knowledge. This is the example we give. So when we allow this Vedanta settle into us as a knowledge, it will shift our identity. When the identity is shifted, the behavior will naturally follow. And when it follows, it will slip, but the behavior will ultimately get settled, right? Because that knowledge becomes the driver. And this is the key insight that we derive from the question that Arjuna had asked. Superficially, it is just a simple question. You have spoken about a person having these qualities. How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? Literally, that is what he has asked. But when you analyze it, you get to know this important value that Arjuna has understood and has coined this question at the right time for Bhagavan. Analysis. Now, after qualifying the person to be the Sthitapragya, Arjuna asks the question, Kim prabhasheta, speaks, Kim asita, sits, and Kim brajeta, moves, goes around. Superficially, it looks a simple question. But when you analyze it, it is definitely pretty deep. We see that this also has two versions of interpretation. There are many, but two predominantly. The first one is Prabhasheta. If you look at him, he didn't say Kimasita Kim Prabhasheta Brajeta Kim. He used very clearly Prabhasheta as the first one, Kim Prabhasheta. This is because he is wanting to know the person. And the best way to know that person is through the speech. What I speak is the primary reflection of what I am. And you slip Basically, you want to hide your identity, but when you speak, your identity gets revealed without even you knowing it. And hence, the speech has been placed as the number one. The other one is asita. The literal meaning is sits. Now, this should be taken from the point of view of taking a position in a given situation. What is his composure? Is the primary question here. To stay, to abide by things, to occupy a condition, etc. One's basic way of being, then not reacting. You can measure yourself in terms of your restfulness, the inner pressures, needing to prove or even escape. These are all the things that we generally do, and they are all reactive in nature, and all of them can be covered under the single term asita. Then vrajeta. Vrajeta is to move, to proceed. Basically, vraj emphasizes a purposeful movement and not a random movement. Contextually, it means engagement with the world or even entering situations in the real world, as in how I engage myself when I want to do something, when I want something to be got done. That aspect of it, how do I transact with the world in terms of my action, is the intended question here. That will be the last one to know, because how I transact could be hidden under my true identity. And hence that has been put as the last. This is one way of looking why Arjuna is asking such a question. Now, there are other ways also. We can say that asitha will come first. Remember, this is Sanskrit, number one. Number two, it's a poetry. It allows us to change the way that we like. From that point of view, asitha, the desire arises, the fear pushes you, and attachment expresses themselves. This is the thing that is happening, is this pushes one to act, which could be through vachikam or kayikam. It is your mental instability or mental alertness. I'm seeing using it both positive and negative so that one is not bound to think it is negative. It is the impression in the mind that makes you act. And your action expresses itself as prabhasheta or vrajeta. So this way of communication is also there, or expressing the anubhavam on the shloka also exists, where Sthitadhī and kimasita are again in terms of what his internal position is, which makes him act as in prabhasheta and vrajeta. So this is another way of interpreting the same shloka. I leave it to you in terms of which is making you convenient or comfortable in accepting as one of the intended objectives behind asking this question. Moving on to the Bhāṣyam. Śaṅkarācārya puts it this way. Arjuna, having now heard about the Samādhī, Buddhi Yoga, and freedom from karma, asks Krishna, Hey Keshava, the person who is firmly established in the knowledge of I am Brahman, what is his language, his manner of speaking, his external behavior, how does he speak, sit, walk, etc. Arjuna is essentially asking for the visible marks of an enlightened being. That is what Acharya emphasizes at this point. Further, he says there are two types of aspirants mentioned. One, from the very beginning, renounces action and enters directly into Jnana Yoga. The sannyasis and others, the swamis, sannyasi, rishis, whatever you call them. One who progresses towards the same state through Karma Yoga. Among them, the one who becomes Sthitapragya, a person of firm and unwavering wisdom, is described starting from this verse, which is the 55th one, to the end of this chapter, 72. There are 72 shlokas in this chapter. In this section, Lord Krishna describes both the characteristics, lakshanam, of the liberated stage, which is Sthitaprajña, and sadhanam, the means or path to attain that state. And this is a very important aspect which is quoted a lot. Yani yatna sadhyani Sadhanani lakshanani cha bhavanti tani. He says very clearly, the features of the liberated person, kritartha lakshanam, are also taught as the very means, as the sadhana for those who seek the path of liberation. And this is not just moksham, etc. It is a natural life example. A person who wants to be a good batsman, he will aspire, he will look at Sachin and he will just try to play like Sachin till he brings out his own caliber, till he becomes the natural person that he is. So it is a very natural aspect in us that one who is accomplished is naturally followed. So Jnani's Lakshana becomes a sadhana for us, which we can practice. They are being taught because the traits like detachment, equanimity, restraint, peace are actually attainable by effort. Very beautifully, Acharya puts it, Yatna Sadhyam. It is through a conscious effort this can be achieved. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogataan atman yevatmana tushtaha sthitaprajñastadochyate. Bhagavan gives it as a flow, a nice one. We have taken specific words from it and we have established 16 characteristics that we can think of in terms of the things that we need to develop as a property in us from the Yatnam point of view. So going into the word by word, Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Shri Bhagavan spoke, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan, sarvan kaman, Prajahati yada. Right? Prajahati is completely giving up. Jahati, gone. Right? And that too totally pra will emphasize that. Yadha, when, kaman sarvan, all kinds of desires. Let us keep it like that. We will do a lot of deep dive into each of these aspects. Partha, O Arjuna, son of Pritha, manogatan, from the depth of the mind. We know that we sometimes let go of things, but we still hold on to it from our heart. We will see some examples also. Atmani eva atmanah tushtaha. This is what the name Rama means. Swasmin rameti iti Ramah. One who is only dependent on one's own self for any kind of tripti is Atmani eva atmanah tushtaha. Sthitaprajñastadochyate. Sthitaprajña is called Sthitaprajña. Tadha, being in such a state, uchyate is called so. So in this shloka, there are two properties. Yada prajahati, then atmani eva atmanah tushtaha. Right? One who is self-contented and another is for whom all the desires have been let gone, have been removed from the core of the mind to influence him. We will speak about it as we go further. In further shlokas, Bhagavan will emphasize that even for a jnani, there are impact that happens when the indriyas are engaging with the indriyartha. So it is going to be universal. That is going to happen. It is important for us to have a stability in our mind in terms of how we respond or react to it. And then he further clarifies the core issue. Dhyayate vishayan pumsaha is the way that goes. We will go into all those shlokas when we get to that place. Let us take a look at it. Manogatan. The example that we have is, though Mr. X gave up drinking, it's a good gesture, it's great. But anytime we meet, he will always speak of the great time he used to have when he used to drink. In this example, the prajahati applies, which is he has let gone of drinking. He has, dropped the habit of drinking. But manogatan does not apply because he is still contemplating about it. Sarvan kaman, some desires may still come and go, but they will remain transcended over the influences of the Gun and Atma. So that Sarvan Kaman, it's the way that we see it is to say that the Kamaha will come and go. There are some schools which will look at Kama Tyagaha. It should not even be there. There is no desire. Kill all the desire. But we say that the Kamaha will come and go, but it will not have any influence on you. Then Atmani Eva. Generally, we have a tendency to believe that objects bring happiness to us. By object, it could be anything. A movie is bringing happiness to me, or a good food is bringing happiness to me. A nice friend, time with a good friend, that is bringing goodness to me. All these are objectified aspects. We are of the opinion that the objects bring the happiness to us. Atmani Eva represents that the source becomes the self alone. The subject is the source of all your happiness that the person experiences. It is not the object that one is experiencing. That is the emphasis with the eva, means only, it is only that. Atmanaha tushtaha, to derive the sense of happiness or bliss or contentment. Tushta, tushtaha, tripti. Now let us take a look at kamam. The general misunderstanding is one who lets go of all the desires. In our school, we say that letting go of all your desires is literally impossible. What you can let go of is the impact the kamam has on you, how you react to it. But the kamam by itself is not going to go away. The kamam is not going to drive you. That is the place where we try to differentiate. We say that letting go of all the kamam is not practical. To establish this, the argument that we make is the kamam comes from apurnatvam. You develop a desire when you don't have a sense of fulfillment. An unfulfilled mind will continue to develop desires, and these desires can be logically established, at times merely seen to be stupid, sometimes as existential, sometimes masked under the constraints of dharma, sometimes even conflicting and contradictory. There are various ways this particular thing will manifest from within us. But the source for all the manifestation is the apurnatvam. Shastra says, in the objects in which you reflect and identify yourself, the apurnatvam is natural. It is born there. Prakriti is purnam only in its totality. When you see this entire universe as one, that is when the purnam happens. But when you split it as it is that star, this earth, that, etc., you have already started dividing it. When you divide it, the objects that you see and identify yourself with will generate the apurnatvam in you. We use this parikshalokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedamayat, Mundakopanishad. Let us do this pariksha about ourselves. It is our direct knowledge. There are several desires that just die. We don't even get impacted by such unfulfilled desires. A simple example is, yaar, lottery lenge to badhiya rahega if in case we win the lottery. But I have not even taken an effort to go and buy the lottery ticket to even win it. This is a desire which is meaningless desire. We are not impacted by it at all. It comes and goes. But there are some desires, they tend to disturb our core. It can be very strong, where it prohibits us from doing anything else. Or it makes you go and do something. Basically, we can split it into two: desires that bind you and desires which do not bind you. A Sthitapragya will not have any desires that binds him, is the core. Desires that do not bind has no harm. And this happens to both jnani and ajnani. They remain free of the influences of the desires that are born in their heart. That is the line we in our school practice. Prajahati, especially with the pra as the upasarga. Pra is prakashena, right? Means it is emphasized. That way of going is what we are talking about when we are talking at a Sthitapragya Lakshan. We can see it as one who has let gone of all desires that bind, or one who has let gone of the associative binding nature of the desires. Let gone of all desires that bind is looking at it objectively, and let gone of the associative binding nature, that is looking at it from subjective, from your own self point of view. Now, in Vedanta, kama does not mean every want. Kama means wanting, a desire born of sense of lacking. That desire, which is born out of apurnatvam, is the kind of desire that we are talking about. For example, hunger. It is a biological need, not a desire. In that, if I want to eat gulab jamun, that is also not a desire, wanting to eat. But if in case I say I'm not going to eat food if I don't get gulab jamun, then that becomes the binding desire. Similarly, if you look at it from a preference point of view, I would like to use this way or instead of that. This is very functional. Office, it always happens. I have one way of looking at it, my colleague has another way of looking at it, and we are going to approach it in a different way. The same rule applies. Having a functional preference is not a kamam, but unable to function when that preference is not met leads to kama. In this context, when we say prajahati, that kama is what we are talking about in terms of removing it from us. The third one is impulse. There are needs that are born out of facing a situation. It is again the same rule, right? An impulsive behavior when the objective in us is kshetra paripalana or dharma rakshana is not considered to be kamaha. Even if in case it is a desire, hey, I need to get this done, that is not a kamaha. But then if in case it binds you, when the kama overpowers you, that is when it becomes the kamaha that we are referencing in this shloka. Prajahati establishes that desires are not forcibly removed. It means desires are disowned. Manogatan establishes that it is not thought in the mind doesn't arise. There will be some kind of thinking that comes to my mind saying, hey, this is what is my thinking. In our school, we say that is not possible. There will be no acquired ownership over the thought. That is what is the Manogatan emphasizes. Apurnatvam. Prakriti is Purnam, but the defined objects based on the Deshakala Vastu Parichinnam is always limited. They are fragmented. In tradition, this is called Bheda Darshanam, which is the divisions that we create in it. Upadhi is the peculiarity that is associated. That is what is removing the Purnatva. It is scientifically important that we do that. That divisions, that peculiarity, that objectification are scientifically, especially within the material world, is important and is required. But associating a self into it, I getting associated at an object level, that is the one that we are always trying to overcome. At that time, you become one who is happy and content with himself at all times. The reference that we give is from Kathopanishad. Paranchikani, the sense organs are directed outwards only. Vyatrinat, he fashioned, arranged, or oriented, where the he represents the Bhagavan. When Bhagavan created us, he created all the sense organs facing outward only. Swayambhuhu, by Ishvara, Tasmat, Parang Pashyati. Therefore, one sees only outwards. Na Antaratman, not the inner self. Kaschid Dhiraha, some rare discerning ones. Pratyag Atmanam Aikshata, which is they see the inner self. They saw the inner self. Avritta Chakshuhu, with senses turned back, with senses turned inwards. Amritatvam Icchan, which is they desiring the immortality, desiring the freedom from this bondage, samsara, desiring moksha. That is the context of the mantra. And This comes where, Nachiketa ask 3 boons he will be given, and Yamadharmaraja will start explaining. That is where this particular mantra comes. This mantra is used to complement why Kamam is universal. So don't be dismayed by seeing greed, desire, anger, etc. Just realize it is the nature of the body that you are supporting. In this body, this desire, anger, etc. are very natural to arise. The question is, am I using the body? Am I the master? Or is the body going to be the master? This is the question that we have to ask ourselves to overcome. The important word is God has punished the human, Yatrinat, trapped. Here they establish that it is a big punishment given to us because the truth is so close to us, and yet we cannot see it because we are seeing outside. That is why the example of me searching for myself everywhere till somebody else comes and tells me, hey, the 10th person you're looking for is you. Right? So no matter how much you go, you will not be able to. That ability to make your indriyas inwards is very key to overcoming, is the way that Bhagavan is responding the first one. Now, Manogatan. This term refers to 2 concepts, and both of them we accept. Desires are properties of Manaha, they are not the properties of Atma. We often try to blame the object as being the cause of the desire. Bhagavan's words are to emphasize that Kamam is Manodharmam. This is neither in the Atma nor in the Indriya Artha, which is Indriyartheshu, Vishayam, the objects that you think are fulfilling your desires. It is in neither of them. The Manodharmam, it is the Manaha, which is the driver for the Kamam. This that it is not in the Atma can be realized by looking at your own experience. When you are having high desires, even to sleep is difficult. But when you sleep, your desires just vanish. The next day morning, something new comes up. You could eventually come back to that burning desire stuff, or it will just be lost. So what you thought is of a, such a high value seems like it is not a value at all. So it is not the object that drove the desire in you. The desire is in your mind, in your manaha. Another way is to see your desire might be to eat South Indian dish, but due to circumstances, you sleep without food. And you dream of eating a Punjabi thali and you are fully enjoying it. Again, you can see that very clearly it is evident that the objects are not creating the desire in you. It is a manaha. So manogatan emphasizes one whose desires that are properties of manaha remain at the manaha and does not become the desire of the aham, of the I, of the atman. In the second interpretation, we come across situations in which we have dropped the desire. For example, voluntarily stopped watching TV serial. I have been quite successful, and since deciding to stop watching this TV serial, I think I have dropped my desire. However, as soon as the topic about some development in the serial comes up, my ears get attracted. What happened? I stopped the serial 4 months ago. The addiction in the mind is always there. So the second way of interpreting is, when I say letting go, I am going to let go of it from my mind. A nice example that I generally would like to give is where, I'm thinking, okay, all these are, I'm going through my cupboard, picking up all the things and putting it into the garbage. And afterwards, I think, okay, I think this will be needed. I go back, I pick it up and I put it back. That is the nature of us, of the mind. That desire aspect of it, we are always holding on to things and not letting things go of us. When the manogatan is used, Bhagavan emphasizes that I have not just let go of that object, but also the tendencies that I have towards that object. With that tendency, the object has been let go. So that is the second way of looking at manogatan. Atmani eva atmanah tushtah. Now, all our contentment is based on conditions that we try to enforce. We categorize them into it must be like this, or it must not be like this, or it must remain unchanged. These are all the kind of properties that we try to drive ourselves. And our tushti comes from this exercise. When this condition is not met, our contentment vanishes. It could reflect in happiness, it could reflect in sorrow, it could reflect in anger, it could reflect in greed. It can manifest in many ways. But the core is something like this, not like this, trying to set something of an object, putting a state of an object in whatever condition it may be, but holding on to the state. And the nature of Prakriti is nothing can hold a state. No object can ever hold a state. They say that where there is Himalayas today, there was a big ocean. Now you can think in terms of such a huge mountain, the highest of the peak, but there was a depth of ocean before. Things change. We may not be able to count it in our timelines, but things change and they constantly change. Yet we try to hold on to things, defining as it must be like this, it must not be like this, or it must remain unchanged. All of them are trying to hold an object to a state which is not possible. Right? Through these conditions, we have placed an association between my contentment and the external influences. Bhagavan says, a Sthitapragya is one who has removed such dependencies, one who derives the contentment from his own self. It is not one who removes the dependencies. Note it very clearly. Atmani eva atmanaha tushtaha. My dependencies on the external aspects as well as external influences at a bodily level, at a mind level, at the prakritic level, at the prakritic level, they remain the same. One who derives the contentment from oneself. He is not saying remove the dependency. Those dependencies are inevitable because you are part of the whole. You remove your dependency. That is why Bhagavan has used the word Atmani eva atmanaha tushtaha. Tushti is not an emotional excitement, it's not a happiness. It is the absence of a demand, fulfillment. So the derived value is this Lakshana that defines that to look for a Sthitaprajña in others is futile. If anybody can say that Hari Bhaiya is a Sthitaprajña, then it can be only Hari Bhaiya who will not say he is Sthitaprajña because he is Sthitaprajña. As simple as that. The knower of such a state is only that knower, not others. That is the important value that we should keep in mind, to note that these are not to measure someone else, rather it is to measure my own progress. Second thing is why desires drops naturally. Bhagavan does not say he fights the desires. He is fulfilled in the selves. So in this context, the Atmani eva atmanaha tushtaha is the fulfillment. When we observed that it is the emptiness or not being full is the reason for my samsara. So he is fulfilled in the self. Fullness is discovered. When that discovery happens, desire becomes redundant. There is nothing called as letting go. Or one can say the letting go happens effortlessly. How you define that letting go is what is the measure. Sthitaprajñah tadha uchyate. Bhagavan only defines. There are other places where he will say that he is dear to me and I am dear to him. All those kind of beautiful words Bhagavan will use. But at this place, he is not using. He is not saying that he becomes a Brahman, he attains liberation, he attains moksha, nothing of that sort. This is purely a definition. Bhagavan's intention is to keep it as a definition and not to exaggerate it. Because if it is exaggerated, it could be idealized. If you start craving for it, it defeats the basic definition of Sthitapragya. So merely to state that is the objective that Bhagavan carried in this shloka. So mature yourself to learning and not fantasizing about the jnani or about the Sthitaprajña is another value that we add in this shloka. In Bhāṣyam, Acharya says, Krishna begins the definition of a person whose wisdom is firmly established. Such a person no longer acts from the inner compulsions or self-centered desires. So these two are the core which is driving all the analysis that we did earlier. Because they are full, again, the fullness is emphasized, and they are very content from within. Further, Acharya says, even when a person has renounced all desires, sarva kama parityage, and therefore no longer has any external cause of pleasure, tushti karana bhavat, he may still appear to act because a minimal tendency remains to maintain the body. So this is the place where I said the body and the desire are going to be there. They are not my properties, and they are not the ones that are going to make me happy. They are going to be dependent on me for their desires. That shift in the mindset will happen. And Acharya gives Sharira, Dharana, Nimitta, Shesha Sati. Right? So he says it is basically the body is going to be dependent on you, and it is going to be not full because it is segregated itself from the whole. But since his actions are not desire driven, his behavior might appear like a madman or an intoxicated person. Unmatta pramatthasya iva. That iva is important, is like free, unpredictable, not rooted in social conditioning or goals. Hence, Bhagavan still describes his behavior so that it is not misunderstood as madness but seen as liberation. This area of analysis has what has again led to everything that we had discussed. The key thing is, do not try to judge another person. And when we start judging the other person, that is when you slip into the problems of samsara. Further, Acharya says, a person whose desires have all been renounced, who is satisfied in his own self, and who depends only on the self for happiness without any need for external objects. Bahya labha nirapekshaha. He is said to be a Sthitaprajña. He has realized the supreme truth, Paramartha Darshanaha. Acharya has used it here. Bhagavan will use it a few shlokas down the line. And hence, he feels no attraction to worldly enjoyments. The only way, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha, in that place, Bhagavan will say that his ability to overcome has happened because he has seen something supreme. And that is what Śaṅkarācārya is bringing here. The worldly enjoyments to him are like tasteless dead thing. Mritha rasa is the word that he is using. Yet again, this mritha rasa is a very deep context here. Taste having gone is the place where we define the desire being driven by that taste for the object. He has the inner attitude of, I need nothing else, this is enough. His wisdom is firm and well rooted because it is based on clear discrimination between self and non-self, which is Atma Anatma Viveka Ja is having born of Prajna. Such a person is free from three main worldly desires: Putra Ishana, Vitta Ishana, and Loka Ishana. Desire for children or legacy, desire for wealth, desire for recognition or fame. Later in Bhajagovindam, Acharya will put it as Makuru Dhana Jana Yauvana Garvam. He adds the Yauvanam, that youthfulness in you as well. He is called sannyasi, whether externally renounced or not, because he has renounced it internally. He is delighted in the art. and plays joyfully. Atma Kiridaha is the way that he uses it, in the self. So he just enjoys playing with his own self. That is the place where we have to again go a little deeper. Time is 7:26. The core is, I am not Atma and this is Anatma, right? So this is one way of looking at it. When we divide Atma and Anatma as two different things and start looking at I as the Atma, then we will always have a conflict with the Anatma. Anatma is no different from the Atma. Anatma has a clear relationship totally in every aspect of Veda and in our own realizations as well. We can see that there is an association. The Atma Kiridaha is an ability to play with the Anatma, as in having a control over the Anatma, knowing very well that the Anatma will think, I am the king, I am the boss, I am the boss. And I'll ask my wife, do I have the permission to say so? That aspect of it, the true boss is elsewhere, but I'm saying I'm the boss, right? That aspect of it, where Atma or the Chaitanya Amsam is the true boss and holds the boss, but allows the Achetanam, which is using the reflection of the Chetanam, Chaitanyam, to think that I am great. This aspect of the interdependence and allowing the achetana swarupam to behave like a chetanam is what is Atma Kridaha, is what is the playing that is being referenced in this context. So with this, Bhagavan as well as Śaṅkarācārya move on to Shloka number 56, and we will take up with this Shloka in our next class. As I said, there is a very beautiful question that Hari Bhaiya had asked. We will start with that question. The question goes like this. In my view, future expectations create strong attachments. And what can we practice to reduce anxiety about the future? This is something, general question that we can all think for ourselves. We spoke of so many things, like, Atmani eva Atmanah Tushtaha Karma Yoga, etc., etc. But in reality, I have to go to work. I have to meet my people. I have to have my, I remember somebody was, one of the, teachers were teaching about it, and he was sharing an experience saying that, yeah, all these are good to hear. You come and deal with my servant in the house. Then you will know all this, self-contentment and everything will be gone. The beauty is we are trying to take to Vedanta to solve a problem of my life, where the problem of my life in itself is not clearly understood. And whether it is a problem or not has not been defined. Are we going to be satisfied by solving that problem? We ourselves do not know. And yet we are driven by such a desire. And in everything, I'm going to go and learn, say, Python, and somebody will say, hey, will it solve my problem here? This is the way that we are always taught to think. Objective of doing all this karma yoga, etc., is to overcome the influences of the world on us. That's about it. It doesn't change. It just merely changes the influences. Can karma yoga help me in resolving my problem? That will be a wrong question there. Karma yoga cannot. You are doing something which is called as karma yoga to resolve the problem. And what is it that you are doing? It depends on the situation and what you are trying to resolve. So we need to be able to define the problem first. Let us go one by one. Let us say that I am holding a position of power. We will take the case with Hari Bhaiya. Hari Bhaiya is a very, at a very high position in his organization, wielding a lot of power. That means he has to be a Rajasic. That Rajasic Swabhavam should not be replaced with a Sattvic Swabhavam, which will make his position or he playing the role in that position meaningless. For him to perform his job, Rajasic expression is a must. The problem that is happening, let us assume that Hari Bhaiya says, hey, I am having this anxiety, or he is having some kind of conflict from within himself. What is that conflict? The conflict is my anxiety, or the conflict is because I want to be Sattvic Gun. Because Bhagavad Gītā says, become Nitya Sattvastha. And here I have to be Rajasic. There is a conflict that is happening within me. And that conflict is what is creating that anxiety. The admission, the acceptance of the fact that I have to be Rajasic in order to command and lead is paramount to me performing this role. Once again, jump back to the latest word that we heard from Acharya, which is Atma Kridaha. It is the game that we are playing. And in this game, my swabhav, as in not the Atma's swabhav, but the Anatma, this body's swabhav, is to be Rajasic. If not for being Rajasic, I would not have gained that position. Let us assume that Naresh is very tamasic in nature. Do you think I'll be able to attain that position? No. Or let us take the other example where Naresh is a jnani, Naresh is a sattvic gun. Will he be able to perform the role of that king? No. Of that leader? No. I have risen to that particular position because my swabhav has the Rajasic gun. This realization that I am a Rajasic, but I am not going to be influenced by Rajasic, will remove that anxiety. So, to specifically answer, the future expectations create strong attachments. Actually, the future expectations are not creating the strong attachment. I can understand from a leadership point of view and how it is visually or how the experience is reflecting it on you. But the truth is, it is not that future expectations are creating a strong attachments in you. Your role is to be attached to those future goals, not expectations. That will be the big difference. Number two is, you are having a lot of Rajasic thing to deal with, and you must deal with it in a Rajasic way. In this process, what is very important is the Sattva Gun also. Unfortunately, in today's corporate world, the place for the Sattva Gun has not been created. Sometimes it so happens in a good team, there will be a sattvic person who will come at a senior leadership level, I'm telling. But in 99% of the companies, you will see that it is the rajas which is pushing. And we are just bound within that particular rajas without the ability to balance. The best way around, or the first step that you may want to think through, is how to infuse some kind of a sattvic gun into your team. Right? That you can do by bringing a new person or creating some kind of training or mindfulness sessions, HR support, etc., and establish some bit of sattvic nature in it. And similarly, tamasic is also important. The problem is the leadership has become so blindsided that they forgot that any entity has to have all the three guns in control. When you realize that and start moving towards that, it could be the first step. But at this point, I will stop. I will check with Hari Bhaiya if in case I'm making any sense, or we will continue on other means that are there to overcome this pressure of a senior leadership and organizational pressures, which is for almost everybody today.
Thank you, Guruji. It does make sense. And again, I just opened the book, the Gunas and the Rajasic, Sattvic, and Tamas again, and I'll remind those. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Nicely answered. And by the way, today Shrikant and Ramani also joined. I know, listening into the class. Yeah, thank you.
We did speak actually. Yeah, thank you. Prabha.
Thank you, Guruji. That was a nice explanation. trying to relate uh, whatever anxieties that get developed because of our rajasic expectations not being met. And at a parallel thought, I had also a thought crossed my mind that in a natural way, our bodies are designed to grow old, and the senses or the faculties that we have tend to deplete slowly, moving us in a natural form to that spiritual peak, or what we have to say there. So I think that is also by design, that we lose our senses slowly, all the faculties, to make us nirgun, or uh, I think you have the better this one to say about it. Yeah.
One is to balance it out is not our objective. To be able to understand that it is Rajasic, it's all. And Rajasic will be like this, acceptance of the Rajasic. Right, that is the first thing that I wanted to really clarify it to you. Right. And the second thing is the Jara, right? The birth, death, and old age, all these things are natural elements because it is a process of change. And I am ever fresh as the newborn or never born. That is another realization that we need to develop. There is nothing that can be done to stop this old age. You can delay it through technology and other means. You can delay it, you can add more comforts to it. But as the core that this body has to deplete, and there is no escape from that. But
I'm so sorry. Yes, Naresh Bhaiya. I'm overwhelmed, right? So this is, I think it's been I've known of the word Sthitapragya, and for me to just jump into this session and to understand more uh, about what it really means, I think it's been eye-opening. And I was going to ask actually Hari to see if there's previously recorded sessions that we could go back and really start learning from chapter 1 and verse 1, etc., and really catch up, really, catch up with everything that's been talked about. And because obviously, as you were talking about some of the verses, there was references made to some of the older discussions. So I would very much want to get on board. In fact, we would want to get on board and start learning this as we go forward.
Oh, definitely. All of the classes, actually, first 10 or so classes, I did not record it. I did not come into YouTube. And after that, I learned how to do this YouTube, etc. And we have been doing it. As of now, there are about 59, and this included 60 classes that are there in the YouTube, only on Bhagavad Gītā. And I also have few on the Vishnu Sahasranama, which is also a work in progress, actually. So I can definitely share it with you. Hari Bhaiya, have you included them into the Nash Gita class group?
I'll add them, Guruji.
Okay. So once you add,
Yes.
I will follow it up, and we can.
Excellent.
I will send the playlist to you, and you can take a look at
Perfect.
it. Hari Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.